So don't say anything bad because you'll get in trouble. I'll show your mom. All right, so anyway, let's do this. Let's draw a segment. I'm going to do an example. This example's in the book, so if you want to look at it, you can. It's example 3 on page 15. All right, so there's a line. I'll put a little arrow on both ends. I'll put some points in here. We'll call this point E. Oops. Yeah, I was just bragging about this thing, and now it's not acting too great. And we'll call this point F, and we'll call this one down here G. Now, we could say that F is between E and G, couldn't we? All right. That's okay. It's a G. Doesn't matter what it looks like. I called it a G, so it's a G. All right. So watch. F is between E and G. Does that mean it's smack in the middle of the two? No, not necessarily. But guess what? On this example, it actually is. But it doesn't have to be. So that's 2 3/4. I know my 3 looks a little weird there, but and this is also 2 3/4. So guess where F is now? It is in the middle, okay? Now, we're not talking about this right now. We'll talk about this in another lesson, but we could call that the midpoint, okay? And we'll talk later in another lesson about the midpoint, but that's free of charge, okay? That's in the future for you. So F is the midpoint because it's exactly the same distance to E as it is to G, all right? Now, what if I asked you what to find if I just said find E, G, and I didn't say anything else. I didn't put any line over top of it. I just said find EG. What does EG mean if I don't have a little symbol over it or anything like that? It means the length of it. That's right. So it said if I said find EG, it means find the length of EG. How long is it? From E all the way to G. Well, what would you do to those two things?
Add them together.
Yeah, add them together. Or you could, since they're exactly the same, do what? You could multiply them by 2, all right? But let's do that. Let's add them. So it's 2 3/4 plus 2 3/4, and that's what? 4 and what? 6/4, which would be, what's 6/4? 3/2, which is 1 1/2, right? Plus that is 5 1/2. All right, there you go. So that's how you would do that. You wouldn't put it in a calculator, would you? Because it's too easy to do in a calculator. So don't put it in a calculator unless you really, really need to. All right?
I'll put in a calculator anyway.
Nope. What did I just say? Don't put it in there unless you really, really need to. All right. Let's do another one. All right. Let's pause. Okay, we've set up a situation right here. We've got line segment XZ. You see that? But it's made up of 2 other line segments, XY and YZ. So that means Y is between, right? That means if I add up XY and YZ, what will I get? I'll get XZ. See, that's what we talked about when we talked about a point being in between.
What?
So what we're going to do, what's that?
I see I have X, Y, and Y, Z.
XY is this segment right here. Do you see that? And then YZ is this segment right here. So if I take this and I put it next to this, I'm adding them together and I get the whole thing. What's the whole thing?
The whole line.
XZ. XZ is the whole thing from here to here. So that's what I said. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually do some algebra with this. This is the first time we've done this in geometry. It's not going to be the last. We're actually going to do this over and over and over again. This style of problem. This is really what geometry is all about. You take a geometry principle. All right, you learn about lines, segments, and lengths and stuff like that. In another chapter, we're going to learn about triangles. In another chapter, we'll learn about parallelograms. In another chapter, we'll learn about circles. But in every one of those different chapters, we're going to do basically the same thing. We're going to learn a geometry principle, and then we're going to apply it. And guess what you're going to do with it? You're going to do some what? Some, not just homework, but what? Some algebra, right. You're going to apply some algebra to it, all right? So geometry is not just geometry and nothing else, okay? It takes those principles of geometry, and it takes them and it applies the algebra that we've learned in the past. Make sense? All right, so that's what we're going to do right here. And remember, this XY plus YZ equals the whole thing. So let's write down the lengths of it. So what's the length of XY?
3A.
3A. And then we're going to add it, right, to what?
14.
14. And that's going to equal the whole thing, which is 5A minus 4. All right? So we took the geometry and we set it up. Listen, please, while I'm talking. We set up the geometry into an algebra problem, and now geometry's done, isn't it? Now we just do algebra and we solve for a. You can do this easy. Subtract 3a from both sides, what do you get? 2a. Add a 4 to both sides, you get 18. Divide by 2, a is 9. Okay? So they ask for a, but they also ask for something else. I think they also say find a, and they also say find x, y. They don't put a little symbol over top of it, so what does that mean? Find the length of the segment. So what do? Well, it's just 3 times what? 9, because, right? Because xy, the length of xy is equal to 3a, isn't it? Or 3 times, we just found a, which is 9. So what is the length of xy? 27. Okay? Now, we could get the length of xz if we wanted to. What if I wanted to find what xz was equal to? You could do it a couple ways. This is 27, right? So you could go 27 what? Plus 14, or you could put the a in this, not a 27. Okay, because this is 3a. Put what in for this? A 9. So 5 times 9 is 45 minus 4 is 41. And you get 41 either way, don't you? You could get that by going 27 plus 14. I'll show my work. 27 plus 14 is 41. Or you could go 5 times 9, right, minus 4, and that's 41 as well. Make sense? All right. All we're doing is plugging in. We found what a was, and we plug it in for this. All right, 5 times 9 is 45. 45 minus 4 is 41. And that's the length of xz. So they could ask you all kinds of questions here. And that's what you want to... Sometimes they just say, solve for x. Or in this case, solve for what? A. But sometimes they'll ask you for different lengths as well. Make sense? Really, if you can get a handle on that kind of stuff, now there's going to be other things we do in geometry as well, but that's a huge, huge part of geometry, is taking a geometry principle, all right, setting it up into an algebra problem, solving the algebra problem, and then we can find the lengths, we can find the angles, we can find all kinds of stuff, all right, on the things that we're trying to find. Does that make any sense? All right, so that's it. Let me tell you what the assignment is.
So,
That's it. It was easy. I didn't say it was going to be hard.
You did.
So that was section 1-2. So on your homework, you're going to write section 1-2, and you're going to say pages 18 and 19. And we're going to do numbers 10 to 32. Alright, so that right there is your assignment. Put that right on your paper right off the bat, okay? So that you don't forget when you turn it in. So make sure you put your first and last name on there, put all this stuff on there, and then you can start working on your homework. Everybody good with that? Alright. And if you need the extra help, go to YouTube tonight. It should be up on YouTube, and you can watch the lesson. You don't have to watch the whole thing. You can skip over, to where you need to. If this is the only one you need to find, go to the end of it, right, and look for it. All right. Everybody want to say bye to YouTube so you hear yourself?
YouTube.
Bye.
YouTube.